You are correct. You heard it there from Jason Martinez. This is the Del Valley Sports Pod. It is episode number 57. We are coming to you on a rare Friday, but you know how the holiday seasons go. There's not really days of the week. It's more just times that you can find a free moment with all the hullabaloo going on. So we chose to do it today. Our schedules worked out. We're going to talk a little Panthers. We're going to talk a little Eagles Steelers.
Yes.
But first off, Dan, how the hell are you?
I'm doing great. Things are really gearing up around here in the Pittsburgh area. The Battle of Pennsylvania is on. So it's been an exciting week. And it feels like there's a little extra on the line this weekend, being that I do live in the Pittsburgh area. Let's talk sports.
I can't wait to talk about it. I will send this teaser out now. Watch NFL Fox Countdown on Sunday because you might see the other guy on the other end of the mic. Just throwing that out there.
Yes.
But that's a little tease. Before we get completely all Eagles'd up, this is a full Philadelphia sports podcast. So let's do our due justice to the other three teams that are in the city. One is not playing, that is the Phillies, but they are somewhat in the news because if you didn't hear already, you probably live under a rock. The arch rival New York Mets have signed one of the best players in baseball to the largest contract in professional sports history, and now we have to go against Juan Soto for 15 years. How you feeling about that one, Dan?
At first, I felt a little bit bummed about it, but here's my take, and I think that this is actually a good take. Would you rather him go to the Mets, or would you rather him, if our goal is to win the World Series, would you have rather seen, if he's not going to the Phillies, Juan Soto go to the Mets or to the Dodgers?
Oh, Mets, 100%.
Right? 100%. And the more I saw, I was like, oh no, the Dodgers are just going to lure him in because they have this super team and they can still pay him lots of money. And like, how in the world can anyone beat the Dodgers? So honestly, him going to the Mets, I think, is, even though we will see him more often, albeit the schedule is different than it used to be, so we actually won't see him as much as we would have in the past. Another positive thing, in my opinion. Yeah, I'm okay with it. Just because I thought he was definitely going to the Dodgers. Didn't really think, the baseball offseason, maybe it's just recency bias, but it feels like there's more hoopla than any other offseason. Like, so much BS. Like, so much, he's talking to the Phillies, he might go to the Phillies, and then a couple days ago, it's like, oh, the Phillies never talked to him, actually, turns out. What the hell, dude? It's so stupid. It just bothers me that they put that out there. But I'm okay with it, and I honestly have been surprised with how negative of a response it's been. Obviously, Mets fans are super excited, but everyone else is kind of, from what I'm seeing, going like, dude, that is so much money for a guy that's probably just going to be a DH for the last third of his career, if not longer. I don't know. It hasn't seemingly been like incredibly supported by the national media.
Yeah, I mean, Juan Soto is a generational type talent. Is he worth $765 million? It is yet to be seen, but I did see something funny yesterday on Twitter, I think it was. Juan Soto in 2039, and they showed a picture of Bartolo Colon. I'm like, yeah, that's
Big Sexy.
That's probably what he's going to look like.
Big Sexy.
And you think of it, like with the contract that the Phillies gave Bryce Harper in 2019, I mean, that looks like a steal right now.
Yes. All those contracts.
Same goes for Jalen Hurts, on and on and on. The contracts of sports have just skyrocketed. It is unfathomable. The fact that Shohei Ohtani is going to be paid by the Dodgers until 2060 or whatever the hell it is. It's crazy. I don't care. I think it makes the division a little more interesting. The Braves just lost Max Fried. I'm going to be looking forward. The one thing I will say about baseball offseason, I wish they had a signed deadline like they do in the NFL. Like there's a free agency period, or at least when it starts. There's no time frame. It doesn't start. Yeah. It doesn't end, which I just think is not it doesn't do the sport of baseball well.
Because it's not good for the players either. It's not good for the players. Yeah, Blake Snell talked about that a lot last year. He had a really slow start to the year, ended up having an unbelievable second half of the year. But he talked about that. He was talking about, and him, and I think another guy he put out there was Montgomery. He's talking about it was really hard to kind of get my normal routine of things when I didn't sign. And Blake Snell, I think, signed super late last year. But I agree with you. Let's put an end date on there, much further away from the season. Better for the players, better for everyone, I would think. Yeah, it's a little ridiculous.
Baseball's been doing so much to make their product more enticing to people, and a lot of what goes on in sports, the NFL is king of this. It's like, okay, there's always something going on. There's always something to talk about. With baseball, it's just a very convoluted, long process of, hey, we'll see. They would do better for themselves to have a finite date of free agency and signing. We'll see if that has yet to come. I'm glad the golden at bat, it has not become a thing.
That's scary.
That was the dumbest thing I think I've ever heard.
Yeah, that's the thing. People are like, oh, let's just have a conversation. And I'm like, oh, conversation means we're one step closer to something like that happening. That feels like such a desperation move. Just ridiculous. And there's so many follow-up questions to if they try to do something like that, obviously. But yeah, I agree. That's just trying too hard to get people to watch, I feel like.
That was a topic for 24 hours, and that's all it should have ever been. I'm glad it's been shut down. But yeah, we'll see what the Phillies have to do in this offseason. We have from now until February. That's 2 months until start of spring training.
Well, two things. One is that, and yeah, like I just said, who knows what's BS and what's not, but it has been pretty consistent that the Phillies have been, from everything that I've seen, shopping the heck out of Alec Boehm. Yes. And I keep seeing failings. Like, they apparently tried to get him in a deal to get Crochet from the White Sox. That would have been awesome. Crochet signed with the Reds, or got traded to the Red Sox. Apparently they were busting their tail trying to shop Alec Boehm for Tucker of the Astros. That would have been freaking awesome if they could have got Tucker. But I think I just saw the Cubs. I don't know if you can confirm that for me, but I think that was nobody wants Boehmer, is what I'm gathering, which is interesting and like a little bit confusing, including us not wanting him. It's just kind of weird to me that this guy that had an unbelievable year last year, like, nobody wants this guy. Kind of bizarre. The Boehm situation to me is a little bizarre. And then apart from that, we did sign one pretty big name with Jordan Romano, or Romano. I think Romano. I heard. Is it officially? Is it? I think I heard the other day that technically it's pronounced the way you wouldn't think it is, but
Romano. Interesting.
I can't confirm that.
It's okay. Romano, tomato.
But he's a guy that's had a pretty electric career, and then last year he had a really bad year, and he had I think a pretty significant injury that he basically was dealing with for the majority of the year. And I'm not saying one thing that you get with this guy, so it's another kind of like, hey, it's 1 year deal. And if he's awesome, that's freaking fantastic. If he's not, I can appreciate the swing on a guy like this. One thing he's bringing to the table, fairly, I'm not saying best in all of baseball, but fairly electric walkout song, which made me think, like, when's the last time we've had have the Phillies ever had a closer that's had a bring the house down walkout song with a closer?
I can't think of one.
I can't think of one either. If memory serves, Lidge didn't have one that was very, I feel like he just had like a country song or something like that. Nothing too wild. And Kimbrel's did nothing for me. But I think his is a song called Tsunami.
I know that song.
It's electric. Now, it's not, again, it's no Donnie Trumpets or whatever that guy is, but
Timmy Trumpets.
Trumpets.
Enter Sandman.
It's not that. I'm not calling it a top tier, but it's definitely like in that middle tier, which is more than we've had.
Yeah. I mean, just to wrap up here on Romano, and they did lose Jeff Hoffman, R.I.P.
Did they really? Dang.
We were your biggest fans.
We
were the Jeff Hoffman podcast, if you will.
We were a couple conversations away from changing the name of this podcast to the my name is Jeff Hoffman podcast. Seriously, we were on that guy early, I gotta say.
We were, yeah. Wait, what was Jeff Hoffman's number? Now I'm thinking here. Was he 57?
Dude, I did not think he was 57, but the thing is, I can't tell you what number he was.
I think it was in the 50s, and I'm doing this for a reason because we haven't. He was 34, I guess.
I'm seeing 23, brother.
23. Oh, 68. In 23, he was number 68, and then he changed his number. That's what it was.
He was good enough that he could actually get to pick his number.
Yeah. But yeah, Hoffman is a free agent, and I don't think he's going to re-sign. So, we'll see. There's a lot left in the offseason. We can put the bet
he
on
hasn't
the Bills.
Officially signed with anybody yet.
No, but he has declared for free agency, or however you want to put it in baseball. Again, all the free agency terms are still confusing to me. But he is elected to not pick up his player option, and he's going to seek free agency.
I've heard grumblings that he might go to try to be a starting pitcher again.
I could see it. I mean, he's put forth good production, and if he wants to go that route, more power to him.
Yeah.
So, all right, let's talk winter sports here briefly, and then we will get into the meat of the football conversation. The Flyers are playing better than they were at the start of the season. They have 30 games played, and they are currently in a wild card spot. Now, given the teams that are directly around them in the Rangers and the Lightning have games in hand, but the fact that they're not completely out of it when a month ago they looked like a terrible hockey team is good. Michkov is playing great. Scotty Lawton, career high 4 goals last night. Good game for him.
I think he doubled his total on the year. I think he has 7 now on the year.
Yeah, he was going through a big drought, and last night, I mean, you got to imagine that snapped him out of that.
As per Jason Martinez, he made history yesterday on his podcast. He said that was the first ever Flyer to score 4 goals in a game, and those be the only goals in the game.
Wow.
Yeah.
I believe that, but that's still a crazy stat.
Yeah.
That never happens. I would love to know how many times that has happened for other teams where someone has scored 4 or more goals and they were the only player to score in the game. Gretzky probably did it.
Probably,
at least
right?
Once.
I don't know though. He's so good at assists as well, though. And the cool thing about it is the last 2 goals were empty netters, and the very, very last goal, Lawton had a breakaway. I think he even crossed the blue line, and then he passed it to Hathaway, and Hathaway had that puck for about 100th of a second. Hathaway immediately gave it right back to Lawton and he was like, all right, fine, whatever.
I guess I'll take it.
That's good vibes, though. That's on both sides. It's cool to see the guys doing stuff like that, obviously.
Yeah. So I like what we're seeing from the Flyers. The Sixers have been off for more than a few days because the NBA Cup is going on, but still they've been playing better as of late. At one point they were 4-14. Now they're 7-15, so they're 3-1 in their last 4. And I think this week of not being in the NBA Cup has allowed them to do what maybe the Eagles were able to do on their bye week. Somewhat early in the season, right the ship, get healthy. I think this might be the time where we see the Sixers start to play more like the Sixers. What do you think?
Yeah, I think so. I hope you're right. Finally, everybody's out there. The last game they played was against the Bulls, and we saw the Sixers that we're used to seeing, right? I mean, we saw even more than that. We saw that 30-point Embiid game. He had 31, actually. And Tyrese Maxey had 25 points, and he had a triple-double. And then you got Paul George contributing as well. And now that allows McCain to kind of come off the bench. He still played 28 minutes, but he had a pretty efficient game as well. So that's what we were hoping to see, like, from day one this year, close to it. But obviously there's been a lot of drama and injuries back and forth. It's a steep climb. I don't think anyone's expecting them to do much this year, but we'll see what happens. It's hard to get super, super engaged or hyped, even if they start playing well, because you're just waiting for Embiid's knee to swell up, pretty much. But it was cool to see the potential, but maybe was it just a tease? I don't know. We'll find out. They play again tonight against another team that's not terribly good defensively with the Pacers, I believe. So we'll see if they can keep it rolling.
I hope so. I just looked at the box score from the last Sixers game against the Bulls. There's a guy who started who I didn't even know existed. if I can throw this name out to you, I don't know if you know who this guy is.
Oh, I guarantee you I know. Is he French?
I believe so, because his name is Gershon Yabusele.
Dude, how have you not know about this? He has been awesome. So
this is how little I'm paying attention to the Sixers. I fully, transparently apologize.
No, he's been awesome, man. So I believe, I don't know his like earlier college or any of that years, but I think that he played in the NBA like back in the day, and then it didn't work out. He wasn't good, and then he ended up playing somewhere overseas, and then he balled out in the Olympics actually for that France team. He was awesome. And then the Sixers signed him to, I'm guessing it's just like probably like a 1-year minimum contract deal. And he's been awesome, man. He's ginormous. He's been pretty good at shooting. Like he can shoot the occasional 3-ball. He's another big guy. And yeah, like he will play in there sometimes with Embiid. But he's a decent scorer, man. And that's the thing that I was going to say. If you were to tell me that the Sixers, if you were to not tell me about the superstars and say, hey, we're going to pick up this one guy from France, and he's going to be like a really productive player, like, I don't want to call him a big man. I think he's like a forward. And then we're going to draft a guy who is going to be in the Rookie of the Year conversation. If you were to tell me that and say, how well do you think the Sixers are going to do this year? I'd say, dude, we already had the guys, and then we got these other surprise guys that are also playing outstanding, which is the shame of it all, is we actually are getting great production out of some guys that we didn't even anticipate being on the team and producing this year, and yet they're in this horrible situation. But, yeah, he's been really good. Yabusele's been awesome.
Yeah, I'm looking at his career stats. He last played in the NBA in 2019 with the Celtics. So prior to this season, he had 5 seasons where he did not play. I guess the Olympics really brought him back into the fold. And yeah, he's averaging 6 rebounds, 2 assists, and 10 points a game this year. Slightly over 25 minutes per game. So yeah, that goes to show how little I've been paying attention to the Sixers. But I usually start paying attention to basketball well after, the new year.
It's
but
really
cool. It's just me, man. I know this is a full 4 for 4 sports pod, but the Sixers are way down on my list, and they have done nothing for me to bring me back in and think that they're worth my time thus far.
It's really cool that Olympic stage does that, doesn't it? I feel like the stage where I've seen it the most is football, with like the World Cup and the Olympics, when these guys who are not necessarily the sole superstar on their team or the only superstar on their regular team, but then they play for their country and they're more of like the guy. It's cool how the big stage can give guys opportunities, and I would say the same thing probably with the last baseball. Was it Olympics or was it like a baseball
World Baseball Cup?
Yeah, it's cool how the big stage can give guys opportunities if they show up. It's pretty sweet, like that.
Yeah, like you have a bunch of Japanese players who you never heard before, but then you go up against them, like, how is this guy not in the MLB? But yeah, just goes to show how good that baseball is, how good baseball is in Japan, and we just don't get to see many of those guys because they're on contract and then they come over here later. But yeah, it's good for Yabusele. I'm officially on board with that guy.
He's definitely earned himself at least 1 or a few more years in the NBA, I'm sure. Good for him.
Well, I'm glad he's on the Sixers then, if he came out of nowhere. Yeah. Good signing. So, that's a little update on the other 3 sports. But if you would like to, we can get into talking a little Eagles-Panthers. It has been 5 days now, and other things have happened since then. But you want to get into a little bit about what happened last week before we move on to the Eagles-Steelers?
Do I want to? I don't know. But
I don't know if you want to. Should we? Do we have to?
Yeah, we should. We should. Briefly. No one probably wants to listen to it anyways, this point.
My takeaways from the game. Obviously, they should have lost that game. If Xavier Legette catches that ball, the Panthers win 23-22. Final score was 22-16. Jalen Hurts had a bad game. And Dan, I would like to start off by saying you have been right for the last 4 weeks when I have been caught with my green goggles saying that this offense was unstoppable. How wrong I was, and I finally see what you're seeing. So if you would like to accept your flowers, by all means, go ahead.
Listen, I'll take the flowers. I'll take a bow. Listen, here's the thing. Neither of us are like major pessimistic Philly sports fans, which a large portion are. Most fan bases, I imagine that's the case. I live in Pittsburgh. I cannot tell you how many freaking obnoxious, pessimistic, fire the coach, all this stuff. Same with the Steelers fans, but I know the Eagles fans are that way too. We're not really that way. I think normally we're a breath of fresh air. We're really positive, glass half full, more than half full type guys. So I'm not inclined to be that way. But that's just what I'm seeing in the game and on film is that he looks uncomfortable and he looks uncomfortable and like he's second guessing himself, and he looked the same way in the Panthers game. And the most concerning thing about this particular one is that he had Smith back for this one. I was kind of attributing it to only having one or two guys he was comfortable throwing the ball to. Well, now Smith was back, and I saw the same body language, and I don't know what the heck is going on, but there's a number of plays. I wish when we did this, we could just like pull up the plays and have them ready to go to show examples. But there's a number of plays where, whether it be a slant route or a hitch route, these timing routes where he's just like not letting it loose a little bit when he has a guy, and then shoot, once he holds the ball for 4 or 5 seconds, then it seems like he's not finding anyone. If he's holding the ball more than like 3 seconds, how many plays is he extending the play and then finding a guy open? I don't think it's happening really that much right now. It looks like he's got that. Maybe it's a good thing he's got the internal clock, and then he just like kind of wants to put his head down and run. But I don't know, man. He just doesn't look confident when he's passing the ball right now.
Jalen Hurts as a pocket passer looked the worst that I have seen him in recent memory this week against the Panthers. If he does not click and find a wide open route in his first read, he is struggling. When it's man-to-man and he can throw it to A.J. Brown down the sideline, he usually hits that. But even still, he hesitated too long and didn't fire. He's waiting, and we've talked about this. We've seen it with a lot of quarterbacks. He's waiting for guys to get open, not anticipating and throwing them open.
It's well put, yeah.
A lot of the time when he was struggling, they were playing against their zone coverage. When they're man-to-man and he knows that he has A.J. Brown or Devontae Smith on a man-beater, he can find that. But when he has to diagnose the defense and throw it to a spot and anticipate, it seems that's when he's struggling, to the point where I think the book might be out on Jalen Hurts. And I want to go back and watch the playoff game last year and the game against the Buccaneers this year and see how much man they played as opposed to zone defense. Because I have a very feeling in my soul that they played a lot of zone defense to confuse him, where the receivers aren't just being trailed, that he has to know where the defense might be going and where his receivers are finding the spot in the zone. Jalen Hurts might not see man coverage the rest of the year.
Yeah, man. I don't know. I think it's a good diagnosis there by you. It would be interesting to break it down in that way to see if there is a connection. It'll be pretty deflating if that indeed is the case. I don't know what type of, off the top of my head, what type of defenses the other playoff contenders typically lean towards. For some reason, I want to say the Lions are like really big on man coverage, but because everyone has their tendencies. But I guess anyone can make adjustments if they feel like it is worthwhile. I'm also curious. The other connection that I'm curious about is Hurts was having some turnovers this year, right? I don't know. I'd have to look up the timeline to see. I don't know if there's any kind of congruency between like he's not turning the ball over anymore and this whole he's not really passing it as much or as confidently either. I don't know if there's a connection there. I haven't looked up the games, but that's another thing that I'm wondering if he's kind of backed off a little bit because he's overdoing it with the fear of turnovers. But
there's no question that happened during the bye week, and a couple of weeks thereafter, I feel like it was so ingrained in his head, don't turn the football over, that he's not being aggressive with his throws. He's so afraid of throwing an interception that he's just hesitating, pump faking like 1-2 times. And if you do that, the half second's gone where you can fire the football. It is evident to me that he is so afraid to turn the football over. He has lost that gunslinger mentality of trying to fire the football in there on a closed window when he has good receivers who can fight for the football. And their offense has become so run heavy, and it's good. But what you were getting to and what we were talking about, man versus zone coverage on a defense, a good team can adapt either pregame or in-game. What I am afraid of is that there will come a time that a defense stops Saquon Barkley and they become forced to pass the football. Mm-hmm. And I don't think that the Eagles, as currently constructed or the way that Jalen Hurts is playing, is going to be able to beat a team like the Detroit Lions if they force Jalen Hurts to throw the football from the pocket. And that's what scares me, because it has become evident in the last, 3 games or so that Jalen Hurts is not comfortable. Obviously, A.J. Brown got frustrated. Brandon Graham went on WIP and started an absolute shitstorm.
We'll get into
with
that.
his comments. I'm scared, and you have been saying it for the last 3 weeks, that Jalen Hurts does not look comfortable throwing the football, and it reared its ugly head when I was still head up in the clouds. Like, you can't stop them. They have Saquon.
I mean,
go ahead.
You have to show some ability to be able to just drop back and pass, right? I mean, it's not like college football where you can just like outman every single team and run the RPO stuff every single time. You got to be able to do it to some point, to some degree. And I just wanted to add on to your comment. Yeah, it's also not just a defense being able to stop Saquon Barkley forcing us to pass. It's what if our defense has a bad game or lets up a couple big plays. Our defense has been phenomenal just in general, but also phenomenal at not letting up really big plays. Like, really incredibly good at not letting up big plays. But what if we go play the Lions and they get some big plays in their offense, right? Or what if we play whoever and they get up to an early lead? It's not just not being able to run the ball, it's also like the context of the game and needing to kind of be able to do more than just run the ball, I guess, as well.
And that also scares you about the way that the Eagles have started games. And again, if you get off to a slow start against the Lions, who, if I'm not mistaken, have one of the best first quarter scoring offenses in football, and the Eagles have dead last, I think they're averaging 1.3 points per game.
For a team this good to have. Isn't that crazy?
It's
I wonder
insane.
How often that happens. One of the best teams in football just literally cannot score in the first quarter.
They can't.
It's wild.
Iceman here on YouTube brings up a great stat. Appreciate this one. Jalen Hurts has thrown an interception in 4 games this year. 3 of those games are his most passing attempts. Seems like he's scared of throwing the football. To your point, Dan, that is exactly what you said. Ever since he was told that don't turn the ball over, he's not firing on all cylinders. They're relying on Saquon. It's worked. They have relied on Saquon, but this past game, he wasn't taken out of the game, but they weren't busting it for that 20, 30-yard gashing run and going all the way down the field. Jalen Hurts missed a lot of wide open receivers, and it came back to bite them in the ass.
I have a pretty crazy stat that I've been holding on to. I'm just trying to make sure it's up to date. But do you know who has? I'm trying to make sure this stat that I give out here is completely update. The least amount of drops in all of football.
I would, by the positioning of your question, I would assume it's A.J. Brown.
Team.
Oh.
Sorry.
Okay. Team. Is it the Lions?
The Lions, from what I have, so see, I had this stat pulled up like a week ago, and I just want to make sure it's still up to date. So I don't know if it includes this last weekend's game, but the Lions, from what I'm seeing, are second best. They have 7 drops.
Okay.
The Eagles have 5 drops.
Wow.
5 drop passes.
Wow.
Isn't that incredible?
Yes, but I would like to counter with that because every stat has a story. I would like to see that compared to the amount of pass attempts per team because I would almost argue that the Eagles probably have a bottom 5 pass attempts per game on the season to the point where Jalen Hurts is, I think he's thrown it under 25 times each of the last 3 games. He threw it 21 times against the Panthers.
Yeah,
Uh,
totally fair.
I have it right here. Yeah. His attempts over the last 3 games, starting with the Rams, 22, 19 against Baltimore, 21 against Carolina. He did throw it 28 times against Washington. But other than that, he hasn't thrown it over 25 times since the Cleveland game.
There's a lot. I mean, there's a lot in there, right? It's also like when it's an incomplete pass, it's almost never on the receiver. Not that it's always on Hurts, but I mean, the receivers are certainly taking advantage of every opportunity. I mean, it feels like we're not that far separated from years of Eagles football where you're getting frustrated by drops every game. I don't know. Since AJ Brown and Smith, I guess but before those guys,
I mean,
I just thought that was an incredible stat. I mean, I got Eagles at 5, Lions at 7, and then it's no one else is in single digits.
The 2 names that immediately come to mind are on other teams now, and Matt Collins and Nelson Aguilar.
Yeah,
Matt Collins has had some hell of a resurgence with the Bills.
Yeah,
I mean,
easy to root for kind of guy.
We thought that guy was. I personally thought he didn't belong in the NFL, but he has proved me wrong. He is not their top receiver, but losing. They lost Stephon Diggs for the season. Or no, I keep forgetting he's on the Texans now. Forgive me. It's been a long week. It's Friday.
Well, they lost last year. They had him. They don't have him this year. But
yeah.
Cooper finally had a big game. See if they can get going. But yeah, I just shout out to the receivers. Good hands, boys. But yeah, you're right. Obviously, the amount of times you're passing the ball is going to factor in there. But yeah, man, would just love to see them have a little bit more successful pass game. And then obviously, you usually, I feel like the saying normally goes that you set up the pass by running the ball. But I think that can go both ways as well. If we could have a little bit more of an aerial threat, it would only benefit the run game even more so.
Yeah, and I don't have the stats in front of me, but I would love to know if it is out there what Jalen Hurts' splits are when he's throwing from play action as opposed to just throwing back from the shotgun or a 5-step drop. Because it seems like most of his success is when they're doing play action and the defense has to account for Saquon Barkley. Again, I don't have that in front of me, but it would be something really interesting to know and see. And we can transition this into next week. I'm interested to see how this offense responds to not only their internal strife, but what was a trap game last week. The last thing I want to bring up on the Panthers, if you have more, by all means, I want to bring up that this was almost the ultimate trap game for the Eagles. Their 3 games prior were all very hard. The Rams game was a little out of touch, but the Rams have shown they're still a good team. They went Commanders on the road against the Rams, on the road against the Ravens. They finally come home against one of the worst teams in football. And you have to think, just as a human, there's always times where you don't go as hard as you probably should because you can skate by. And they probably felt that this past Sunday against a bad Panthers team who still played really damn well the weeks prior. They almost beat the Chiefs, and the other team they beat or almost beat the week before that is escaping me. But the Panthers have been playing much better with Bryce Young. And then after the Panthers game, they have the Steelers and then another game with the Commanders. You have to think that was their okay, we can probably take this one at 90%. We don't need to go 100. And they played like it. I'm so thankful that they got out of the win. This is the one of the year where I'll say a win is a win, and I'm happy we escaped. But it did not look pretty.
Yeah, you'd like to think they'd take it more serious because the Panthers have been competing with teams in their last couple games. The one big notable one is I think it was 2 games before the Eagles. They almost beat the Chiefs. They had the Chiefs number, and then the game after that, they should have won that game. I was it the Buccaneers? I think they played and went into overtime and
Yes,
had an
yes.
incredibly costly fumble by Hubbard, but they were about to win that game. So this is a team that's clearly been on the rise. And I got to give the Panthers a little shout out. I got to give old man Adam Thielen is playing like a top receiver in the NFL right now. And he was doing it before the Eagles game. And I tell you what, out of all the guys Cooper DeJean has faced and has dominated, it looked like Adam Thielen gave him the best effort of any of them. The most success I think we've seen this year against Cooper DeJean, it came from freaking Adam Thielen. Unbelievable.
Yeah.
But that guy was washed.
Thielen made Cooper DeJean look average. But we will. Do you want to transition into the Steelers here? Because I'm interested to see how the offense responds, or should we talk about the hullabaloo that was the locker room this week?
Well, we should. I just wanted to give a shout out in my notes here, my game notes. One thing, I mean, we could go talking about everything forever. Oh, two things that really stuck out to me. First, CJGJ doing his best Brian Dawkins impersonation. My gosh. Jeez, a nice clean lay in the woods smackdown. And it's funny because earlier in the week I saw, the Eagles will go to play teams, and then on Instagram, on the different Eagles fans feeds or whatever, they'll show clips from back in the day. And I can't remember the guy he hit, but there was one that was floating around from Dawkins against the Panthers where he laid the wood. And wow, CJGJ with maybe the biggest hit of the year so far.
Yeah, CJGJ is flying around the field. Love the intensity that guy brings. We finally have a safety that I think people are starting to fear. I'm so thankful after his 1 year away, he came back and is as good, if not better, than when he was on the Eagles 2 and 3 years ago.
Yeah, I think his weaknesses at times, it seems, are in the pass game, which is tough, obviously, for a safety. But that guy is not freaking afraid to invest his time and energy in the rush defense and to make guys second guess about coming his way. He plays freaking physical, and he came in and out of that game, I think, 2 separate times with injury, and he was out there, came back out on the field. He plays with everything he has. I think a week ago I saw that one of those polls went out from like anonymous football players around the league that he was the most annoying player in all of football or something like that. I don't think it was hated. I don't think it was like a word like hated. I think it was just more of like annoying.
He's a nuisance.
Nuisance, yeah.
Yeah.
And then the other thing that stuck out to me is I don't know if he got credited. I want to make sure, see if he got credit for a full sack or it was a half sack. Yeah, he got credit for a full sack. Zach Baun, another, I thought, really good Zach Baun game. And they mentioned he got a sack in that game. That's 3.5 for the year. I thought this was interesting. That's the most sacks he's had in a single season. And it's interesting to me because he was an edge rusher guy before he came to the Eagles. You'd think that as an edge rusher, he'd have more sacks and more opportunity to get sacks. But the most sacks he's had in a single year was only 2, and that was last year, and he's already at 3.5 this year. Good for Zach Baun having a career year.
Yeah, once again, roaring round of applause to Zach Baun having one hell of a year. I hope they pay him. Please do not let him go like they have done to other decent, promising linebackers, Kaiser White, to name one.
They're gonna want some money though. He's gonna want a big paycheck.
He's earned it. Pay the man.
Yeah.
So, all right, let's get into the hullabaloo that was the Eagles locker room and media talk this week, because directly after the game on Sunday, if you didn't hear it, again, I think you might live under a rock, A.J. Brown did his media availability, and they said, what needs to improve about the Eagles offense? He gave a one-word answer: passing. And that's all he said.
Which is true, by the way, the passing game.
He's not wrong. He's not wrong. But that was a clear shot at his quarterback that Jalen Hurts is not playing as well as he has been shown to do. He's not hitting open receivers, himself included, and Devontae Smith. I mean, there was 2 very long televised conversations with those 2 on the bench about like going back and forth. What's going on? What's going on? The film shows it. Jalen Hurts isn't finding his open guys when they're getting open. And then BG comes out on Tuesday night on his show on WIP and says that, yeah, they had a good friendship and something's changed. And I don't know if you saw the video, but it was with Spike Eskin and Howard Eskin, where he does the show at Chickies and Pete's. And as soon as
that guy.
I agree, I hate both of them. As soon as BG said, yeah, but something's changed, Spike went up in his chair, was like, what? Like, oh, this is interesting. This is juicy, to the point where that led Good Morning Football and Get Up and every other football
freaking stupid
program for the rest of the week. Like, BG should know better than that. I hope he's trying.
Let me ask this: does he do that? Was he doing that Tuesday's show prior to the injury?
Yes.
Okay,
that's a weekly spot for him.
Okay, from the BG standpoint, in my opinion, my read on this is just like such a very clearly like, I'm not used to this. Usually I'm out there with the team. He is sidelined, and I think he wants to win and he wants to contribute. And because he's not out there, he's got more time to do stuff like this and ruminate on stuff like this and try to help the team in other ways that maybe he thinks are helpful, even though they're not. I don't know. I think that this maybe wouldn't happen if he was not injured, because I think he's probably not sitting around as much and trying to overstep in these other areas potentially, you know. And I also do think that this goes to show, I think that teams are really well connected, but I think that there is like a big separation between defense and offense. Like, I think that those guys are super tight and they like know the guys on the offense or whatever, but I think that they're not. I feel like it's common for the defensive guys not to be as in tune with the offensive guys.
Yeah.
And I think that this is a reflection of that to some degree.
I agree. I think I agree with your first point more in the fact that he's not in there in the game day to day dealing with the blood, sweat, and tears of trying to kick out your opponent. And now he's seeing from a more removed point of view. And it inclined him to go a little bit further with his words than he probably should have, because he is on the sideline and he's not, in there. My hope and thought here is that he was playing the Joker, or maybe this even goes to AJ too. It's like, if you want me to be the bad guy, I'll be the bad guy if it's going to make us be better. I'm hoping that somewhere deep down he was trying to get the team as a whole to be like, hey, let's cut the shit right now. All right. And then maybe it's one of those where it's like, okay, let's turn everybody against us so we can go back to the we all we need. Because look, everybody's talking crap on us now.
Chess versus checkers, you're saying, you're hoping. I'm
hoping. Maybe it was just a slip up from somebody who is not used to doing slip ups. But
I don't think he's that. I don't think he's like that kind of a. I'm trying to figure out the best way to say this. Well, first of all, yeah, I do think it's a guy who's got the same build-up energy and motivation and desire to win, and he doesn't have the normal outlets to like infuse that or to get that off. So then you got this venue being more emphasized, and then I don't know. I think maybe Graham is more like a speak the mind and kind of speak freely than totally plan everything ahead of time and be super mindful and cognizant of the effects of what he's going to say.
No, for sure.
That's my read. But
to the point where, like, immediately after that happened, he walked it back to Tim McManus and every other beat reporter saying, like, that's not what I meant. He clearly realized he screwed up. And I think whether it was somebody in the building or just himself realizing what he said, I don't think he realized what he said when he was saying it. And it clearly blew up. Sirianni, Jalen Hurts, AJ Brown have all come to the mic after that incident and have really handled this situation well. I
completely agree.
They could have clammed up or just not said anything, but I feel like when they approach the mic, they're like, yeah, you know what? This team is not perfect, but we're working through what we're doing right now. We're gonna move on. This is gonna make us stronger, not weaker, because we realize where we need to get better, and we're all coming together in the one mindset where like, okay, we know this is an issue. Let's fix it. Let's be better. Let's move on. And that is my hope. We won't know until Sunday or the games going forward, but yeah. I think they handled it after what could have been an absolute shitstorm. I thought they handled it very well in front of the microphone after.
Oh, I completely agree. And they all kind of, and this is he brought this upon himself, Brandon BG. They all collectively were kind of like, yeah, BG shouldn't have said that. He doesn't really know what's going on. And that was a dumb thing for him to share. And we've talked about that. And they all kind of like put it on BG as it should have been. And then I think I completely agree. I thought everyone was saying the same things as well. Like it seemed authentic. It seemed like everyone was on the same page. And it seemed like, wow, this was really such a freaking stupid, dramatic thing for no reason at all. Seriously, no reason at all. I think that everyone gosh, this is the side of sports I freaking hate, this stupid dramatic BS, dude. I don't honestly think that this thing even affected the team that much. Like, I feel like it was a little bit like everyone just kind of rolled the eyes like, BG, come on, pal. The Jordan Mailata interview or media session I sent you was perfect. It was a perfect example of it, right? Like, Jordan Mailata, first of all, was like, hey, I didn't say it. Don't bring me into this. And then he just handled it with such grace, which, by the way, he does all the time. He's so graceful with the media. Like, he's so smooth with it. He's just awesome. He's a smooth guy. But, yeah, this is stupid. Like, can we just move on from this? It's not a big deal. You guys made it a big deal because you wanted something to talk about. We're fine. Yeah, we're frustrated the passing game's not working. Anyone would be. Anyone should be. And I think sometimes in general when A.J. Brown answers questions, especially when he's frustrated or was a bad game, I don't think this is the first time he's been like, I'm going to give a one-word answer so I don't say anything too stupid. And that's fine. And I think that that's like a smart approach. I guess you could have said, what could have he said instead of passing? The pass game. People probably would have still ran with the narrative of he's putting it all on Hurts. The pass game is freaking struggling right now. Hurts is the quarterback. Yeah. Like, what are we doing here? You know? I mean, yeah, it's stupid. I hate it. It's so dumb. I hate it, dude.
It gave everybody in America who talks football something to go off of because it's not something you see every week. You don't always hear players talking like this, especially after a team has won 9 straight games, which we can't forget. But I would like to get to the Steelers game because I want to see how this team reacts after they've had their first turmoil since, maybe the Browns game, or if you want to put Nick Sirianni's blunders against the Jaguars in there. But this week, and I want to talk about this with you because obviously this is near and dear to our hearts. We met in Pittsburgh. For those of you who are listening and you made it this far and don't know, Dan and I met at an Eagles bar in Pittsburgh. We became friends because of Philly sports, and that's where this podcast began. And this is the first time since it's begun that the Eagles are playing the Steelers. I cannot wait. But first, I would like to get to our episode of the week player. This is episode number 57, and I did not know this until right before the podcast when I looked it up. Can you tell me who was a coach for the Steelers and also played for the Eagles?
I mean, I only think I know 2, so
I kind of narrowed it down there for you.
Did Bill Cowher play football?
Bill Cowher played for the Eagles in 1983 and 1984 and wore number 57.
I got to look up a picture of this, dude.
He started at linebacker all 16 games in the year 1983. I did not know Bill Cowher played for the Eagles. Dude. I frankly didn't know he played NFL football that much at all.
Yeah, same.
But he played 4 seasons in the NFL, 2 for Cleveland and 2 for the Eagles before retiring and getting into coaching. So to bring it all full circle.
At this doofus linebacker, Bill Cowher.
Did he still have the mustache back then?
Yeah, from what I'm seeing.
Yeah?
Yep. It's actually pretty hard to find a picture of this, which is pretty surprising to me. Is he that old? I guess he's pretty old.
I Wow. Yeah, I'm seeing a picture of him with his big doofus mustache
Yeah,
and
yeah.
a Kelly Green jersey.
I'm seeing him in a tub with some short shorts and that mustache on. Yeah,
Yep.
if you were to ask me what position he played, that is the first position I would have answered with, by the way.
Rough,
Bill
just spitting
Cowher.
snot out of his eyes.
Yeah, dude.
Yeah.
And it's
So
all the pictures I could find are the pads that are like, how they are so big. How could anyone
neck
do
roll.
anything in this pads?
That's neck roll football for you. Oh my God. So
That's
yeah,
electric, dude.
Bill Cowher wore number 57 and played for the Eagles. Both things I didn't know, but I think it brings it full circle here on the Del Valley Sports Pod as the Eagles get ready to take the Steelers on in South Philadelphia.
It's incredible.
Dan, what are your early prognostications on the game? Your general thoughts, if you will.
Yeah, well, I think it's absolutely huge. I'm seeing that George Pickens is expected to be out for this game,
yes.
which changes, in my opinion. I mean, look, you saw how the Steelers' pass game was last week. It's just not the same without George Pickens. Who else is playing receiver on this team? You got Van Jefferson, right? You got Calvin Austin, two kind of like quick, gimmicky type receivers. And then you got, Mike Williams, who's good for one target a game normally.
Yeah.
I think Freiermuth becomes like almost the most favored target for that pass game there. Yeah, I don't know. I can't see how they would pass the ball all over us. And I think with Pickens out, that is like such a big play threat. Though, albeit you're guaranteed probably 15, 30 free yards via penalties, and we're going to miss out on that for sure. But yeah, I can't help but feel good about it. The only thing is, I do think the Steelers, and I think they've been trying to do this all year, they are going to try to really get the run game going and to try to work and build off of that. And we went up against the Panthers last week, and our run defense looked as bad as it has all year, to be completely honest with you. The other thing that blew my mind about the Panthers game is how much I didn't realize how good at running the ball Bryce Young was. So on one hand, I was like, oh, wow, he's pretty good at running. He's a fast little guy. Here's the thing, man. How about the game before that? We were freaking game planning for Lamar Jackson. We settled him down pretty good. Then the next game, we got Bryce Young, and he looked like Lamar Jackson. He was running all over us. Just total lack of awareness, which blew my mind because we had just played Lamar Jackson and the Ravens. Can I not carry over at all, Coach? What are we doing? But obviously, Russell Wilson is not as big of a threat to run the ball. He's good in the pocket at like moving and evading, but he's not gonna, speedster his way every play for a first down. I like our pass defense in this. We got to be able to shut down the run. And if we can shut down the run, I really think the defense could have a really good game this weekend. I really do.
I agree. I think what I'm looking at matchup wise is strength on strength, and it is TJ Watt against our offensive line. And it's going to be, if they're in passing scenarios, how well is Jalen Hurts going to be standing up there when TJ Watt is coming off the edge and looking to bury his ass? I think they can run on the Steelers. I wish I had watched more game film of the Steelers this week, but with Pickens being out, I think our defense is better than their offense. And I think it's kind of strength on strength with our offense going against their defense. Now, if you're looking at the odds, which are always somewhat of a little hint as to going on, the over-under is 43.5, which is a little on the low side, but the Eagles are favored by 5.5, and it started at 4.5, so people are feeling the Eagles, and I think George Pickens being out has a lot to do with that. But if they can shut Najee Harris down or at least limit him, I don't think Russell Wilson's going to be able to pass the ball out of the stadium to beat the Eagles the way he would be able to do if George Pickens was in the game.
I really think we cover up Muth, and I don't know how much they are going to be able to go to those other guys. I wouldn't be surprised by a couple hunky-dory plays, like Coach trying to outdo himself. Sometimes they'll do that, and without Pickens, I could see him trying to do some silly business type plays, whether that's a reverse, a receiver pass, something weird. I could see something like that happening in this game. The other guy that the Steelers have is Cordell Patterson, who is notably he's like a Walmart guy that's had a horrible season. Samuel. Help me out here. Why am I
Debo?
playing his name? He's like a Walmart Debo Samuel. Although these Debo Samuel is looking like a Walmart Debo Samuel. But no, he's a good football player. I respect Cordell because he's involved with everything, every aspect of the game. He's like willing to participate in, and he's been solid. And he's a big trucker, dude. But one thing that's fun, I know TJ Watt is huge, but one thing about kind of watching the Steelers a little bit more living here is that I don't think the other guys on that line get nearly enough credit because of how good Watt is. But Highsmith, who I believe is healthy, he's phenomenal. He's a great player. And they actually have, I think we've talked about this in the past, Nate Herbig, former Eagle lineman. He, I believe, is on the IR right now, but his brother is also on the team. And he's a linebacker,
Nick, right? Nick,
Nate, and Nick. But Nick's had some big moments. He's become a decent player. So between Highsmith and Nick, those guys are getting to the quarterback a little bit as well. And the other guy who's been drinking the fountain of youth this year and the last couple years, Cam Hayward, is still balling out a little bit. So they have some other guys on that line.
Cam Hayward.
He's had a couple of really good games this year. And then the other guy that they picked up in the offseason, which was a huge acquisition, and you've seen the effect that it's had on the Ravens defense, because that's who we used to play for. Patrick Queen is a hell of a football player, and he is all over that field. He is freaking fast. He will take your head off. He is freaking tone setter, Pittsburgh football, blue collar guy. He scares me a little bit. And he is, I think, the heart and soul of that defense. So they got some big names on that defense, some big players, and I think Patrick Queen has been phenomenal for them. He just flies around, dude.
Yeah, I have some stats in front of me. I agree. That was a huge pickup, getting Patrick Queen from their crosstown rivals. I mean, how do you let that guy go? But
I know
that's for another thing. As I was saying, it's kind of strength on strength. I have the overall rushing or overall defense and offensive stats here. Steelers offense overall 17. Eagles defense overall number 1. So that's where they're going to need to make their hay, as they have been, is limiting the offense of the other team. The Eagles Eagles offense is 7 overall. Steelers defense is 7th overall. So you have strength on strength, to the point where the Eagles have the best rush offense and the Steelers have the 4th best rushing defense. So if Saquon Barkley can get going, that is going to be big, because it's going to be tough. This is going to come down to how Stoutland has these guys playing, and the schemes of how the offensive line is able to pull and trap, as they have shown their ability to do so. If they're able to get Saquon some holes against a really good rushing defense, that should set them ahead with the ability to maybe dictate the game they want to.
Yeah, I completely agree. I think both teams are going to be aiming for the same thing here, right? Set the tone physically and run the ball effectively and efficiently. I think that's probably what both teams are going for here, and obviously don't turn the ball over. Which, the way when we're starting to talk about this, doesn't it feel like eerily similar to the Ravens preview?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Isn't that weird?
It's which team is going to enforce their will earlier and make the game go the way they want to. Mm-hmm. Dictate the game script on your own terms, not what the other team is allowing you to do.
I got to ask you this. TJ Watt leads the Steelers in sacks with 9.5.
Uh-huh.
Next is Cam Hayward. Guess how many sacks Cam Hayward has?
2.5.
He has 8 sacks, bro.
What?
I'm telling you. I'm trying to tell you. Wow. He is having, and this is an old man, if I may.
38?
Not that old, but 35.
Okay,
35 defensive tackle. I believe they re-signed him in the offseason or gave him a couple more years. I'm not going to look into that, but that's remarkable. And then next you got Nick Herbig and Alex Highsmith, both have 4+ sacks. So when I say it's more than just TJ Watt, believe me. But I didn't even know Cam Hayward had 8 sacks this year. That's freaking remarkable, dude. So this is going to be a test on that entire offensive line. Not just they're going to want to go Lane Johnson on TJ Watt. No, it's going to be all those guys.
to put this in perspective, Aaron Donald retired at age 30. And Cam Hayward is out here still balling his ass off at 35 years old. That's how old BG is, right? And we're like, BG's over the hill. Shown he wasn't, but Cam Hayward is still clearly doing the same. Maybe even better than BG was throughout this season.
Yeah, he's having
still a
great
problem.
year. And then the last guy, I know I'm reeling off all these names, but I give the Steelers credit because some of these guys, like, they've made some really good acquisitions, Patrick Queen, and then they got a guy, I don't know if he was a free agent or it might have been a trade with the Panthers, but Dante Jackson, he's new to the team, and he's leading the team with 5 interceptions, and he's had a really good year. So they got some studs over there. So, yeah, I think it has the potential of being a really intense and physical game for sure. I think we're going to see some personal foul penalties in this game for sure. And another thing apart from stopping the run is being able to track Muth, who it turns out is their second best receiver, at least in receiving yards, but then also the running backs, which we've struggled with at times in the past game this year. Notably, the Ravens game, the Panthers got us a little bit with that with Hubbard. But, yeah, they will check it down a lot to Najee Harris and Jalen Warren, and now you're seeing a lot more Cordell Patterson in these recent games. So just being able to track down those guys.
Yeah, Najee Harris is having a low-key very good season. Maybe not totally rushing the football, but he is definitely dynamic out of the backfield. So let's see how the DBs and or linebackers are able to cover him, whether it's Bond or DeJean in the slot. You know, let's not let Najee Harris run rampant from a flat route, please.
Yeah, he's
it's
his
not
whole
like
career has been
that.
subtle.
Yeah.
He's actually, I think, the first ever Steeler to have 1,000+ scrimmage yards in his first 4 years each.
Really?
You would never guess that because honestly, he gets more. Over the years, he's gotten way more hate than anything else. But the fact is, the Steelers refused to put together and invest in an offensive line until recently, and now they have. And I just sent you a clip. They're actually running some pretty impressive stuff. The offensive line has been really good for them this year.
Yeah, we get to go against our old teammate Isaac Seumalo.
Love that guy.
Proving that he was not just a good guy under Stoutland U, but he is still just an all-around good offensive lineman. I'm happy for him, even though he's not on the team, that he's still having success. Was always a guy I rooted for here.
This is the game where Jalen Carter finally is going to get held, and the refs are going to see it and throw the flag. Broderick, I think his name's Broderick Jones. Guy's a big trucker on that line. He's either a Georgia or an Alabama guy. Big dude. But, man, he will draw some laundry on the field. And finally, we're going to see it this week. A hold against Jalen Carter. It's happening at least once. Oh, maybe twice. I don't know. But it's going to happen this week. Guarantee it, dude.
All right. I hope he finally gets his just due of having a holding call called against him.
I would not be surprised if there's some words and maybe a couple of personal fouls between Carter and Jones. They're both big talkers.
I just feel like the way these two teams play is going to lead to a very chippy, aggressive football game.
I agree.
It's going to be fun.
I agree.
I do have to run here. I'll throw out my projected score here. I'm going 22-19 Eagles. It is not going to be pretty, but I do have a feeling the Eagles are going to come back in this game, similar to the way they did against the Ravens, but not exactly dominate the second half. I'm foreseeing a very long drive down the field to put them up by a field goal in the fourth quarter. That's kind of the way I see this game script going. It's going to be a little bit ugly at times. It's going to be a little bit back and forth. But ultimately, the Eagles, the talent that they have, and maybe this little resurgence of being back to a brotherhood in the locker room after airing dirty laundry, gets them in the right direction. That's how I see this game playing out. And you, Dan?
Yeah, a couple of quick notes. One, I don't necessarily see this being the game where, the pass game is good again, it's back again, because I don't know that this game necessarily even calls for that. So I think it's okay if this isn't the game where Hurts goes and throws for 250 yards. I don't think that we're asking for that to happen. I think that we're just want things to look a little bit better, and to get the occasional passes in there and aggressive passes when it's necessary. The other comment I meant to say earlier, I'll say it real quick now. The kicking game. Close game, might be tough to finish drives in the red zone. Jake Elliott has been as bad as anyone in the entire NFL from 50-plus yards. The last kick he tried last game was maybe the worst kick we've ever seen from Jake Elliott. I mean, I'm not trying to be dramatic, but it was. I mean, it was about, if you put a whole nother field goal post to the side, he still might have, and attached it to it still might not have gone in. And the Steelers have, I think, the best kicker in all of football, who kicks in Pittsburgh, by the way. A tough place to kick. Chris Boswell is fantastic. So that's something that I do not like going into this game, because the way we're talking about this game, it could be lower scoring, not as many touchdowns, and a field goal could win it. So I hope that doesn't bite us in the tail there. I'm going to go for Eagles. This seems low, but we're going to go Eagles 16 because they're going to miss a field goal in this one, unfortunately. Steelers 12 because they are only going to kick field goals in this one, Colin.
Well, Dan, it's funny you say that because I was thinking about it. Do you know what the Steelers record this year when they have not scored a touchdown?
2-0.
Yep.
I'm locked in, brother. I'm locked in.
Yeah, you are.
He's on my fantasy team, so I'm locked in, brother. Chris Boswell is phenomenal.
The Boss God, as they
call him out there. And the thing is, the score of those games, you would think the score of those games would be like, I don't know, 9-6. They're not even that low scoring games for only scoring field goals.
15 and 18, respectively, in two games.
Pretty freaking impressive.
5 and 6 field goals. There's another thing to watch. Can the Steelers pound it in the red zone against the stiff Eagles red zone defense? They get down there on the 5-yard line. Are they going to be able to punch it in?
Listen, they love to go to Pickens in the end zone, get that jump ball, and they don't have that. They don't have that. So that's Mike Williams, but I'd rather be going against freaking Mike Williams than George Pickens, because that's been the red zone target in many cases, and he's not there.
All right, Dan. Yeah, we'll wrap it up there. I don't know if you have anything else you want to get off your chest about the Eagles, Philly sports as a whole. We got Christmas coming up, so happy holidays to everybody. I will just send you off with tune in early. Tune in for the Fox game day, because my wife and we went out there. Actually, NFL Fox reached out to kind of the Eagles community in Pittsburgh, and they said they were doing a big group photo at this one time on Thursday. We show up. It was just me and my wife. So they got a drone footage of the city, of the Overlook, with me and my wife dressed up in Eagles gear. So Jillian and me, we're hoping to be on the big screen. We're going to make it big this weekend. Tune in early. See if you don't see us out there. I think the Glassteaders are going to make an appearance on Fox NFL Countdown. Book it. You heard it here first. Because there's nobody who loves Philly sports in Pittsburgh more than DG3 and his wife, Jillian. To the point where that is also where you proposed to said wife. So what a full, beautiful culmination that would be. That would be very cool. Sick. I hope you make it, dude. This has been fun as always, even on a Friday. Enjoy your weekend. I'll be texting you all morning on Sunday. I might go down for the tailgate. I might watch the pregame at home and then head down during the 1 o'clock window and tailgate with some people. Be a lot of Steelers fans in town. But yeah, I look forward to watching the NFL as a whole and seeing the battle of the Keystone State once again. Yeah. Let's go Birds. I'm excited about this, man. I can't wait. There's nothing like Eagles Steelers, even though it's not a rivalry. It's special to us. And you guys are special to us in the fact that you listen to this podcast. It is an honor, a blessing. Dan, I love you. Happy Friday. To those who watch, streamed, and listen, we appreciate you. And we will talk to you next week. Good stuff, Colin. Go Birds. Go Birds.